month for water.
No shortage today.
The drought must be over then.
Just to kind of frame what we attempted to do for the month of January. We had a great speaker the first week from the Met that talked about the history of water in California and the distribution systems and the complexity of delivering water from where it is to where it's needed. Last week we had an equally interesting talk by a fellow that talked about the reuse of water from the other side and how critical it is that we take better advantage of reuse. The idea for this week was to talk a little bit about somebody that is working in the area of technology, because the future is we need to recognize that 7/8 of our planet is water, but it's water we can't use. And the idea of being able to use the water that's in our planet, either because it's been contaminated by man or naturally contaminated or salty, which is something that makes it difficult for us to use, it's going to be technology that makes that happen. There's over 12,500 desalinization systems that now operate throughout the world. Almost the entire Middle East is now living on both agriculture and potable water from water that comes from the sea. That machines and technologies now allow it to be used. And the future along the California Central Coast in California that has no water. Be careful if you buy property between San Luis Obispo and the north area, because you better make sure it has water rights, because you might own property you can't build a house on if you don't have water rights. So, a longtime friend of this valley, a longtime friend and a former member of the West Covina Rotary Club, is engaged with a fellow that has a fascinating concept of an old idea of Drusilla. And I'd like to introduce Jerry Basinski. For those of you that don't know, he did his studies as a marine biologist. He led the studies on the health of the marine life off San Onofre Nuclear Power Plant for a number of years. And he's done some other interesting things. Many of you know him as an entrepreneur and owned a company here supporting small businesses. And today he's representing Sundar Industries. Jerry, and you can either use that or not as you wish. I don't know that you need it.
Use it. You can't
You need to use it, Jerry.
Usually I have a booming voice. First of all, I'd like to say thank you for having me back. It's been a long time. I've been asked repeatedly what year I was here. I think I'm senile. I thought originally it was about 99, but probably 94, 95. And I travel so much and have in the past that it made it almost impossible for me to make those dates. Back then, the sergeant at arms would get after me, and I think when I finally bit the bullet, I had quite a deficit. But I still attend Rotary events regularly. Most of the time, it's the North Las Vegas Rotary that has a Happy program, if you've ever heard of that, and with about 150 members or thereabouts. But I'm here today to talk about a company that I've been recruited to work with. My position there is I'm going to be Managing Director of Worldwide Operations for Sundar Industries. First of all, let me tell you a little bit what we have here. You've heard repeatedly, I'm going to go over this really quick because I'd like to get to the technology section. We have shortage of water all over the world. I've been associated with Sundar now for only about 9 months. And what I'm learning about water, I knew about California and I knew the problems we had. The problems that we have worldwide are really large. Just take a look at what's going on in Haiti right now. We're working with Haiti before this with the UN. But we have shortage. 1 million people already lack access to fresh water. We got water-related wars. They think that many people believe that the wars in the future will really be water-related. and water related in the access of food also, production of food. We're finding that for those of us here in California, we find that hard to believe, but when you start talking to people across the world, the problems that they're having. I'm going to skip over this a little bit because we have limited time. Drexel did do a pretty good job of mentioning the number of RO units across the world. These is the existing technology. Problem with RO, it is very expensive to produce water. And until recently, the cost of producing an acre-foot of water is around $1,800. It doesn't sound like that much, but when you start talking about agriculture, there's no way in the world you can grow tomatoes or anything and pay $1,800 an acre-foot of water. You know, we'd be looking at $10, $12 heads of lettuce, and just because of the water costs. For those of you who know, there's a couple operations in the United States. They're trying to build one in San Clemente and Carlsbad right now. They're having some difficulties, but they put billions of dollars into that project. We've got one going in where I reside right now in Huntington Beach with Poseidon. We have a very large one in Tampa Bay. It's in Florida. Recently, there's been some improvements, and I put down this slide here, as much as $1,200 an acre foot. That's what they're producing, that's what they're touting right now. Mainly improvements in the membranes for the RO units. For those of you who don't know, what happens is essentially you chemically pre-treat the water. After you pre-treat it, you have to put it into these membranes at very high pressures, which causes lots of energy usage. The energy use then drives up the price. Then you've got to maintain the membranes, and you then got to also get rid of the chemicals before it's safe to drink. It is all workable. It's been being done for a long time. There's another operation called multi-flash distillation, and that I think pretty much is the Navy process. And that's what's going on with the aircraft carrier in Haiti right now. It's providing a lot of water to Haiti. It's cumbersome, but Navy ships don't have much choice. They have to do it. Now, we've come up with a technology, and I'm going to throw this a little bit out to our founder, Bill Cotton. He's the one that's come up with this. He's a farmer and a real estate developer, and he really calls himself Farmer Bill. This guy is quite an engineer. Spent his years in undergraduate study as an engineer before he decided to become a farmer. Through the course of almost 30 years, he's come up with this process. Basically, it requires almost no energy. We run this process with a 4 horsepower vacuum pump. Now you start thinking, what are we talking about? We're talking about producing 540 gallons a minute with a 4 horsepower vacuum pump. There is some additional energy requirements that's pumping the water into the unit, so it requires a pump. And once the water comes out of the unit, you got to pump it into a reservoir or something that requires a pump. So there is some energy usage, but the unit and the process itself is really conducted with a 4 horsepower vacuum pump. We do have a patent for it. I do have a copy of the patent here if any of you are interested. It was published back in June 2009, which really set us in motion. There's a lot of uses for this water right now. Obviously, I'm going to talk about a few of them, but the one that's probably going to be the first application we're going to use is basically in the oil industry. For some of you who do not know, we pump out 100 gallons of water out of the ground, or 100 barrels of whatever. Out of that, there's 4 barrels of oil and 96 gallons of polluted water. As you probably know, the oil companies can't just dump that water anywhere they want. It's polluted. So essentially what happens is they have to treat that and also then pump it back to the ground exactly where it came from. It's pretty expensive. We've come up with a process